So, what does it really mean to be alive? You know, it feels like it should be a simple question, but the real answer, the one that truly counts, isn't about anything we can see. Nope. It's hidden in a constant, invisible battle that's happening inside every single living thing, right now.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to tear down some of our basic assumptions about what makes something alive. Then we'll get into the fundamental struggle that every organism faces, day in and day out. After that, we'll see how life fuels itself for that fight, and finally, we'll check out the amazing inner logistics required to keep the whole operation from falling apart.
All right, let's dive into part 1, the real sign of life. We're going to push past the obvious stuff and find a definition of alive that actually holds up under pressure. It really all boils down to this one question. I mean, you look at a dog, and then you look at a rock. It's pretty obvious which one's alive, right? But what is the one single non-negotiable difference between them?
Well, our first instinct is to go with what we can see. Things that move, things that grow, things that breathe. But think about it. What about a person who's asleep, or a tree in winter, or a mushroom? Suddenly, our simple, visible signs start to fall apart. They're just not reliable enough. Turns out, the real answer, the one thing that is always true for anything that's alive, is totally invisible to us. It's the constant, nonstop movement of molecules. This restless, microscopic dance is the one true signature of life.
And you know, viruses are the absolute perfect test case for this. On their own, they're just inert. They show no molecular movement at all. But the second they infect a living cell, bam, they hijack its machinery and spring to life. This is the very reason scientists still argue about whether viruses are truly alive, and it just goes to show how critical that invisible movement really is. Okay, so we've got it. This molecular movement is the key, but why? Why is it so absolutely crucial? Well, that question takes us right to the heart of a truly epic struggle, the battle between order and the environment. If you think about it, living things are just miracles of organization. We're built from complex tissues, which are made of cells, and those cells have all these even tinier components inside. It's this incredibly intricate, ordered structure all the way down to the molecular level. But here's the kicker. The universe, by its very nature, is constantly trying to break that beautiful order down. It's a fundamental law of physics. Things always tend to fall apart into chaos. And that means your body, your very structure, is under a constant, relentless attack.
And this is a fight that you can't ever take a break from, not for a single second. The moment that internal order starts to break down for good, life is over. So you see, maintenance isn't just something you do to stay alive. Maintenance is being alive.
And all of this never-ending work, this constant rebuilding and repairing, it has a name: life processes. You can think of it as the body's 24/7 maintenance crew, working tirelessly to keep the entire structure from collapsing into dust.
Now, as you can imagine, a maintenance crew that works 24/7 needs a ton of energy, which brings us right to part 3, energy in, energy out, or how life fuels this constant fight for survival.
It's a pretty fair question, right? If life is one long, endless repair job, where does the power for the construction crew come from? Well, the answer's simple. You can't make it from scratch. It has to be imported from the outside world. And that whole process happens in 3 basic steps. First, there's nutrition. You got to get an energy source, food, from the outside to the inside. Second, a bunch of chemical reactions break that food down. And finally, respiration. The body uses oxygen to convert that broken down food into a universal form of energy that every single one of your cells can use.
So, getting energy is one thing, but what about distributing it? That's a whole other can of worms, especially when you're bigger than a single cell. And this brings us to our final section, the incredible challenge of life's inner logistics.
Look, for a single-celled organism like an amoeba, life is pretty straightforward. Its entire surface touches the environment, so it can just absorb food and get rid of waste easily. But for a massive multi-celled creature like you or me, most of our cells are buried deep inside, far from the outside world. They can't just absorb a pizza. Simple diffusion is a total non-starter. So how did complex life solve this huge logistical problem? Specialization. The body evolved different teams of cells, or tissues, to do specific jobs. One team to handle food and oxygen intake, a whole other system to transport it all, and a third crucial team to handle waste removal.
That delivery network is what we call the transportation system. It's basically the body's internal highway, like a massive courier service, making sure that every last cell, no matter how deep inside it's buried, gets the fuel and oxygen it needs to keep doing its job.
But there's a catch. All this activity, all these chemical reactions producing energy, well, it creates waste, byproducts. And this stuff isn't just useless garbage. If you let it pile up, it can become toxic, poisonous even.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, excretion. This isn't just about getting rid of waste, it's a vital cleanup operation. It's the body's sanitation department, tasked with collecting all those dangerous byproducts and hauling them out before they cause any real damage.
So, let's put it all together. You've got your maintenance crew. Nutrition is the supply team, bringing in the materials. Respiration is the power plant, generating usable energy. Transportation is the delivery fleet, getting everything where it needs to go. And excretion is the cleanup crew, taking out the trash. It's a perfectly coordinated system.
And this brings us right back to our big idea. Life isn't really a thing you are, it's a thing you do. It's the continuous, active, and absolutely essential process of performing these functions to maintain that delicate internal order against the chaotic forces of the universe.
So we're left with one final thought to chew on. If being alive isn't a passive state, but an active, constant process of rebuilding yourself against decay, what does that really say about the incredible work you're doing right this very moment without even thinking about it?